Hello and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to take you through the basics of building and working with dashboards. So charts are really powerful. They can help you get your finger on the pulse of a problem. They can help you convey a very insightful or incisive point. However, if you want to drill into a complex problem, if you want to articulate a story, or if you want to keep tabs on multiple key metrics, what you're going to want is something that looks more like this, something that looks more like several charts side by side in a logical flow that relate to one another. And that's exactly what a dashboard is. So now we're going to start working on those. Let's jump into Zoom data, where we have our flight delay scatter plot from the last video. And we're going to open that and take another look. So once again, we're looking at this flight delay scatter plot. And you can see that for these 5 different airports, they're plotted on departure delay versus arrival delay. You can see that despite having the greatest volume of all of these, LAX and O'Hare are on opposite sides of the spectrum, with LAX having the shortest of both delays and O'Hare having the longest of both. So wouldn't it be interesting to kind of try and explore this weird discrepancy and figuring out why LAX and O'Hare have such a great difference in delay times? Well, that's what a dashboard can be really helpful for. Let's try and think of how we can add some depth to this. The scatter plot is really great for showing us this correlation, but it doesn't really give us much detail aside from the fact that this is the year average. So if we could plot these 2 airports for all the months of the year, maybe we can see which months are contributing to this discrepancy. So let's add one of those plots. If we want to do that, we're going to click this blue Add Chart button in the top right. So I'll click that now, and we're going to create another chart using our FAA Flights Delay CSV, and this time it's going to be a line trend attribute values. And now you see when you click that Add Chart button and you create a new chart, it creates this tile here. And so now we have a dashboard. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We've always had a dashboard. It was just a dashboard with only one chart in it. So everything you've learned so far about charts, all of that applies to dashboards as well, because charts are essentially dashboards that just have one chart in them. So let's go back to what we have here, and let's start setting up our chart. So we want to group by origin airport. We're going to do, let's say, months. And we're going to want, let's say, we'll have one for arrival delay and one for departure delay. So this can be the departure delay one. And let's add another chart for arrival delay. Exact same thing. Let's group by origin airport. And our y-axis is going to be arrival delay. Make sure it's average. Lovely. And let's zoom out to months. Now, there are a couple problems here. One is that the layout here is kind of all over the place. So let's fix that now. There are 2 ways you can move these tiles around. You can grab them by the top and move them. You can also drag from the corner to manipulate their size. So what we're going to do here is try and make the scatter plot hang out up top here. And then we're going to try and line these 2 up. So departure delay and arrival delay. And I would prefer departure to be on the left because you depart before you arrive. And I think that's a more logical flow. So let's do that. Now, when you're moving these widgets, these charts, I have 2 tips for you guys. Tip 1 is it's much harder to move a chart from the top to the bottom, like I did there, than it is to move it from the bottom to the top. So when you can, move it from bottom to top. It's easier, and that's because the dragging bar is at the top side of the chart, so it's less distance your mouse pointer has to move. The other tip I have is if you're having a really hard time moving charts, I would recommend making your chart really small and moving it into place. So you'd make it really small, move it into place where you want it, and then you'd expand it again to fit wherever you wanted it to fit, because smaller charts are easier to move than larger charts. All right, so now we've got these side by side. There are a few other things that I'm going to want to work out here. Next one is we want to compare LAX and ORD. We don't really care about these other three airports. So what we're going to do is filter them out. And we can do that by full screening this and going into filters, adding a new filter on origin airport, and including only LAX and ORD. Now I'm going to hit apply. That's going to update. Fantastic. Now one thing we're going to do now is let's try saving this filter. So let's call this LAX and ORD. And when you save, you can also share it with your colleagues. Now, I'm not going to do that, but if you have filters and your friends like looking over your shoulder and they're like, wow, that's a really clever set of filters. Can I try that? You can always share it so other people can use it as well. So now that I've saved this filter, when I go to this one here, I can click Filters, New Filter, Saved Filters, and select this one that I've saved from before. And therefore, I don't have to make the filter over twice. I can just reuse it. Lovely. So there's one more issue with this, and that's that the rulers aren't consistent between these two charts. This one goes from 0 to 30. This one goes from -10 to 25. So let's standardize this for both at -10 to 30. And this is going to be helpful for us because then we can actually compare these on an even scale. Lovely. Great. And now let's see what we have here. So we have departure delays, arrival delays. And departure delays are generally higher than arrival delays. That's correct. They both generally have this peak in the summer. Interestingly, though, arrival delays flip. O'Hare actually does better than LAX in the fall months, whereas that flipping doesn't happen in departure delays. So that's kind of interesting. It could be because arrivals are making up extra time in the air. It could be because of a management difference. I don't know, but that's something that we can look into further. Now, the next thing I want to add to this dashboard is I'm looking at this and I realize we have comparisons for departure delay for the two airports and comparisons for arrival delay for the two airports, but we don't have any comparisons between departure delay and arrival delay. So I kind of want to make that a reality. So let's make that happen. And the way I do that is let's add a chart, same CSV source as before, and then I'm going to go to line trend multiple metrics. So the difference between this multiple metrics line trend and the attribute values line trend is when you hit the y-axis picker on the attribute values, you can pick one, and it'll compare all the different attributes against each other. When you hit the metric picker y-axis on the multiple metrics, it will let you actually check off as many of these as you want, and each of these will show up as their own line. Now, what we actually want right now isn't all of these guys. We actually just want arrival delay versus departure delay. Arrival delay average versus departure delay average. Great, lovely. Now, what we're going to do also is filter this, and if you notice here on the top right, it has this little filter icon, and you can use this to add a filter without actually having to click this icon to full screen it and be able to access the left rail. So I'm going to filter it from out here. I'm going to add a new filter, and we're going to set it to airline, and let's set it to American Airlines. Lovely. Oh, wait, American Airlines? What am I talking about? I meant LAX. Well, turns out you can undo in Zoom data. You can either go here and manually delete it, but you can also click this little undo button in the bottom left, and it'll remove that filter for you. There is no redo, though, so keep that in mind when you use the undo button. Another thing to note is that when you're full screened, the undo button will be here on the left rail on the top left. Now let's actually make that filter for real. Let's go into this filters display. Let's add a new filter. Let's add it on origin airport. Let's add it on LAX. Fantastic. And then let's use this time granularity picker to make it months like all the other ones were. Also great. And now we're going to add a chart identical to this one, except that the filter is going to be on O'Hare. So we're going to go to multiple metrics. We're going to select arrival delay and departure delay, average. Set our granularity to month. Another thing to note is if you click the middle of the granularity picker, you get a menu, so you don't actually have to use the zoom buttons. If you want to get, say, from minute to year, you don't have to go through all the middle ones. So we're going to just pick month. Make sure that number of flights isn't selected because it's selected by default. And then go into filters, add a new filter, origin airport, O'Hare. Apply. Great. Now, none of these are side by side anymore, so let's fix that. So first we're going to take this LAX here, and remember, move from bottom to top. So I'm going to move this down. Then we're going to extend the scatter plot again so that these are even underneath it. And then we're going to extend down this scatter plot. And then now we have our two multi-metric line charts next to each other. Great. As before, let's make sure our rulers are the same. This is -10 to 30, this is -10 to 15. So let's set them both to -10 to 30 so that we are comparing on the same axes. Let's make sure this auto is unchecked. Great. And let's do the exact same thing for these rulers. And let's make sure they're not automatic either. Fantastic. Looking at this data, there's an interesting difference here. This one, which is filtered to LAX, is a lot flatter than the O'Hare one, which is a lot spikier. And thinking about the geographic location of Chicago O'Hare versus Los Angeles LAX, you can notice that maybe this is seasonal differences. Maybe there's a summer spike and then a winter spike in delays because Chicago has cold winters and hot summers, whereas LA is about the same temperature all year round. And so the airport staff there don't need to worry about changing weather conditions and have that additional base of consistency. So that's interesting to note. There's not just fewer delays, but less variability in delays as well, even though there is still a slight seasonal variability. Now, one other thing I'd like to change about these charts is right now, without clicking on the filters to look, it's pretty impossible to tell which airport each of these charts is for. So I want to rename them so that I can tell immediately. So this is O'Hare. So I'm going to click this here. So when you click the name, it'll let you rename. And then I'm also going to click this one here and make it LAX. Delays. We could also change the name of these charts as well, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to show you, though, is you can change the name of the dashboard here as well. It's the same as the name you saved it under, though. So if you change this, this will change, and vice versa. Another thing I'm going to show you is this top bar here. So over here, you have the favorite icon. You can click it to favorite your dashboard without even leaving the dashboard edit screen. Click it again to remove it. This here is a global filter. So if we click this, it will add a filter to all of the charts in the dashboard. Like, for example, if we only want to look at delays that had to do with American Airlines, we can apply that, and every single chart will update to only include data from American Airlines. And you can click that again and remove that. All the charts will update accordingly. Moving to the right, we have our export options. We have 3 export options for these dashboards. One is you can export an image, a screenshot. So I'm going to do that now. And what you will see is that once you've downloaded the screenshot, you're essentially looking at almost a screen grab of the screen you were looking at, where your pointer is, which chart you've selected that's lined in green, how far you're scrolling down. All of that will translate into the screen grab. So keep that in mind before taking a screenshot of a chart or a dashboard. Additionally, there's the PDF option. You click that, you can add a header or a footer. I'm going to make this header training, and we can add our username and a timestamp and export it. And surprise, surprise, this is actually identical to the screenshot, except that it's now contained within a PDF document. So these are the different ways you can export a printable version of this dashboard. There are also third-party tools you can use that will allow you to export the whole scrolling web page, and those can also be useful if you're trying to export a longer visual readout of this. Finally, at the bottom of the export menu, there's export dashboard configuration. What this is going to be is it will actually save a JSON file. Now, in this case, we can't actually do that because this is based on a CSV. You can only do this option if your dashboard's data sources only include data sources that are connections to databases and not flat files that have been uploaded. And so what this does is it's essentially a list of instructions for any Zoom data instance anywhere on how to connect to the database where all this data is stored and how to display this dashboard. So, for example, if you have a dashboard you've created as a proof of concept for a client and the client really likes it, and a few months later you set up their own Zoom data instance, you can use this feature to download your dashboard configuration, and then when you bring it up at the client site, you can upload it onto the client's instance, and they will have the exact same dashboard, and it'll have instructions to connecting to the same data source. That can be really useful. It can also be helpful for preserving important charts and data sources when you upgrade or when you wipe your instance. There are all sorts of situations where it's useful to have like a hard backup of your dashboard, and that's what that is. This next button is dashboard links. It'll let you link to a different dashboard if you have multiple dashboards that you want to have links going back and forth from. We're not going to go into too many details about this. Just know that it exists, and if there's a situation where you're going to have multiple dashboards that you want linking to each other, you can use dashboard links to do that. On the top right, we have that save button we looked at. Again, you can share with all the users in your account. You can also click this share button to share with people who aren't Zoom data users. So these are public share links. There are two types of share links, interactive and non-interactive. And I'll show you the difference. If I follow this non-interactive link and put it in my browser, I'm going to be able to see this whole dashboard that we've made. Very nice. But when I click these, I can't change these metrics. And I can't add filters. I can only look at it, essentially, and kind of understand the data. I can't even zoom in from month to day. But this can be really useful for showing people what you've done. You can like create a presentation that like incorporates this type of web page as an aspect. Another thing you can do is use an embed code. This is an iframe, and what happens with this is if you copy this and you paste it inside the HTML code of a website, it will actually take this website that we just went to and it will embed it in the middle of that website. So let's say you're working on a blog post and you've done some really cool data analysis in Zoom data. Instead of taking some screenshots of those charts or like using this PNG export, what you could do instead is actually create one of these non-interactive links and use the iframe to embed it in your website. And then it just becomes an embedded part of your website. Now, if I click this interactive radio button, the exact same options are available. You have a link to share and an embed code. However, the difference between the interactive and the non-interactive links is that with an interactive link, you can add filters. With an interactive link, you can change the metrics. So maybe instead of arrival delay, I want to look at airtime. I can do that with an interactive link, or distance. So that can be a big difference. You can change all the different colors, you can change all the different settings, you can do all kinds of things if you have an interactive link. And this is important to keep in mind because these links that you get from this share menu here are public. Anyone can see them. You don't need a Zoom data login. If you're dealing with privileged information like HIPAA health records, it might not be the best idea to send these links. And if you have information where you're using information that's safe to show the public here, but if you clicked this and switched it, you could switch it to some information that you might not want being public. Like, let's say the FAA created this, or Acme Global Incorporated created this. They want to show the public this airline delay information, but they really don't want to show people information about canceled flights. Then in that case, you definitely want a non-interactive link. Because if you have an interactive link, someone could go in and change that information and they can get to those canceled flight data. So just something to keep in mind. Sharing is really, really powerful, but it comes with some caveats. All right, so that's kind of our dashboard. And just to go over what we've done, we built up this scatter plot. We looked at it. We realized that maybe we want to get more insight about why LAX and O'Hare are so different in performance. So we looked at it over the year. We also looked at arrival versus departure delays for each airport over the years. And finally, we looked at some of these widgets up top, what they do, and we went into detail about the different ways of sharing your dashboard with others. And as a quick refresher, I'm going to show you the slide on sharing. You have your interactive, non-interactive, shareable link, embed code, and remember they're public. And you can also share with people who have a login by clicking this share with all users in my account checkbox when you save. So hopefully now you understand how dashboards work and you're ready to kind of explore and create your own dashboards. The next video you're going to see me in, I will be showing you some additional features that we haven't covered in these last few videos. For example, how to change the colors in your charts. For example, how to create what are called calculated metrics to do some more complicated things with these metric fields. Look forward to that, and I will see you in the next video. Enjoy. Bye-bye.